Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. It's still your girl Fairy Glams. If you're new to this channel, I want to say a warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining, thanks for clicking, and to my old subscribers, thank you so much. Thanks for staying, thank you for sticking around. Today I'll be teaching you how to make this lovely turban. I call it a turban with the bow and a brooch on it. So come over, let's do this. Right here I have the items we'll be needing for this. I have my hot glue gum. You can use UHG gum or P6000, whichever one you want to use. I have my fabric. I used lycra, the shiny lycra for this project. If you want to make this turban, then you need a stretchy fabric. You need a stretchy fabric. So for this, see how stretchy. Right here I have my crinoline, the hard crinoline. I have 2 yards here, but I did not finish it. It's the 3 inches crinoline. It's the hard one, the hard type. I have my measuring tape, scissors, needle, matching color of thread, Tailor's chalk, or a crayon. I use a crayon right here. Then we'll have a brooch. You also need a sewing machine and office pins. So let's move over to our fabric. I'm about to cut out or measure out the fabric we need. So to do this, you need to identify the stretchy part of the turban and use that area, that part, the stretchy part. So I measured 11 inches width, 11 inches length rather. So the width of an adult hair, or the head circumference of an adult, is 22 to 23 inches depending on how big the person's head is. So, and the length is usually 11 to 15 inches. If the person has a hairdo, a bigger hairdo, you can increase it to 15 inches. So I did 22.5 inches, then 11 inches with 22.5 inches for the length. 5 inches is for seam allowance, then 11 inches width I measured and I cut out right then. Then on the stretchy part as well, I'm going to cut out our band, or my band rather. So I'm also trying to identify the stretchy part and I use that area. For the width I use 4 inches for the band. Remember, we're cutting for the band now. I'm trying to cut for the band. Then for the length I used 14 inches length, 4 inches width. I don't want my band to be too big, so I'm using 4 inches width. So if you want your band big or bigger, you can decide to use 5 inches. So over to the band, I folded it into 2. Then I want to make a slant cut. Please remember to fold on the right side to make your cut. So I measured 2 inches from the top. I measured 2 inches like I'm doing there. Measured 2 inches and I cut it. So I did a slant cut right on the top of the band of one of the pieces. So you cut this 2 piece. So you had about 2 pieces of this. I did the same thing to the other one. I repeated the same thing to the other one. So I have to. The next step is to fold it into 2. So I want to form my V shape right here. I folded into 2, then got the second one, did the same thing, folded into 2 as well, and I placed it on top of the first one I kept before. Just watch me, guys. So I place it on top of the other one. So those 2 edges have to actually meet. So, and the other tip is a bit protruded where I'm touching, so that when you sew, the sewing machine can actually capture that area, because if you do not sew it together it may pull off later. So I cut those two edges, and I pinned it down to secure it, or to hold it in place, to keep it in place. So then I pinned down the rest. So I've got my middle, which is very crucial, and I pinned it down. So I also pinned down the other side to keep the fabric in place, to put it together so that it does not come off later. So after doing that I took it up, and now we want to attach it to the base. So I just got the midpoint, folded it into two, got the midpoint, then I notched. Also did the same thing. So as you can see right there, I also did the same thing to the base, got the middle, the center, and I notched just a little cut there to get the middle. So the front facing up, the right side facing up, and I brought my band middle to middle. Remember, I'm placing it middle to middle, the part that I notched, middle to middle. Then I'm just going to pin it down. Please, if you're doing this, make sure that all fabrics are on the right side, because after this we're going to be sewing. So make sure that all fabrics are on the right side. So I'm just trying to pin it down. I've pinned it down to the middle to middle. Then I'm also trying to do the same thing to the other ones, so to the other sides. So I pinned to the right side and to the left side, as you can see what I'm doing right there. So we're just going to sew that way, straight down. Just sew straight down, sew from the other side to the other side, from one side to the other side. So after sewing, this is what you're going to have. And so I didn't want to go to sew this, so I just had to finish it up here. And after sewing, you fold into two. Don't mind the excesses that we're going to cut it off. So I made my turban shape. I used my chalk, marked out my turban shape, and I'm going to cut it right there. So I did a slant shape there, that's a turban shape. Then with my scissors, I just cut right through, following the line that I marked out there. So after cutting, next you sew. We're just going to sew right through across the turban, from that top down to the bottom. So then over here I have, for my bow, I have 20 inches of fabric cut out, 20 inches in length, 6 inches, 6.5 inches in width. Then the second one is about 18 inches in length. Then the width remains the same. The width is 6.5 inches, so that when we insert our crinoline, you have a kind of an allowance for your crinoline, a seam allowance. Then over here I have for my loop 5 inches width. Then the length is 9 inches. Now if you're making much bows, if you have more than 2 bows, you can increase the length of the loop. So we'll just fold it into two, the right side facing each other. You always sew on the wrong side, so we're going to do a straight stitch on all of them, a straight stitch. So my turban is ready. I've sewn it. As you can see, I'm cutting out the excesses right here. The excesses, remember the excess we had from the band, so I cut it off. Then this is the part where we form our V shape. I'll also trim off that part. So our turban is almost ready. So the last thing to do is to do gathers or form gathers on our turban behind it. So from there where I'm pointing down to the tip or down to the bottom, just right there beneath or below the band. Please do not gather from the band, below the band. Then we do gathers, form gathers from there down to the tip, down to the sharp point, the other side that is a bit sharp. Just watch me, friends. So if you're making this, please do not make it too, do not pull. When you're done, do not pull it too hard. Just make it a bit fair, like I'm doing. Don't make it too hard. So you can sew with your sewing machine, like I just showed you. You can use your sewing machine to sew, but right here I'm doing a back stitch in order to secure the stitches, the gathers rather. So our turban is ready. We're all done with the turban. As you can see, it's looking lovely. The turban is ready. Then we'll move over to the bow. So right here I've sewn my bows. The material, I'm trying to turning the right side. Here is what we have. Like I said, you can make up to 4 bows, 3 if you want, depending on what you want. So I just inserted my crinoline, inserted it. You have to be careful with this so that you don't damage your crinoline. So I had to get a scissors to help me push this through. You can use a safety pin if you want, but it may damage the crinoline, so I had to go with scissors instead. Well, whichever one is easy for you. So I just put it through and came out from the other side. So with my crinoline in, you have to make sure that the seam is under, is facing backwards, it's under the bow. So that's it. Then I also repeat the same thing on the second one. So it's ready with our seam facing down. We're just going to fold into 2. We're going to fold, right facing right, fold into 2. So please make sure your seam is facing down. So we're just going to sew, and make sure also that your crinoline is protruded, is a bit out. So we're going to sew, fold into 2, sew, use a sewing machine and sew neatly. So we're back, we're done sewing. I'm just going to trim off the excesses right there. I have done that. Next step is to put our bows together. Put it together. The big one comes under the small one, but anyhow you want to arrange it, it all depends on you. So the small one comes on it, trying to arrange it very well so that one is not protruding more than the other one. So it's well arranged now. So next step, I'll just sew or stitch it together. But before then, right here we'll have for our loop, remember, just trying to turn it inside out. Here I sew the 2 bows together. So the next step is to attach our loop. So with the seam facing up, that's the wrong side, I placed it and I started sewing. You have to make it a bit tight, but not too tight, so that you can actually turn it over after sewing. So I use my needle and thread. You can use a sewing machine. So the next thing I did was to cut off the excess part, but before you do that, please make sure that you are able to, like I'm doing there, make sure that you're able to actually turn it over. Try it out before you cut it out, in case it's too hard or too tight, you can always lose and sew again. So I've done that, and I'm turning my loop the right side out now. So just turning it out. So the sewn part, as you can see there, is now under, and our loop is as neat as you can see. So we're done with that, and we'll just move over to the next step. So the next step is to attach our bow to the turban. So to do that, I used my mannequin, and I tried it out. Before you fix it, you need to actually mark the point where you want the design to be. That's what I'm trying to do here. So I just tried it out, and I got my crayon or my chalk, and I marked the spot where I want the design to be. I marked it right there, and after that I used my hot glue. Okay guys, I always love sewing, but this time around I didn't want thread to show under my turban cap after making it. So I applied my hot glue, my gum, and right where I marked, I glued it down to the turban. So when you do this, make sure you apply enough pressure. You can also take the cap off the mannequin, hold it in your hand, apply enough pressure to make sure it glues very well. So what I'm showing you is this, it doesn't have any stain. And when you're applying your gum, you need to be very careful. Just apply it in the middle so that it doesn't ooze out when you glue it to the base. So that's what we have. It's so neat. To attach our brooch, I have two ways to do this. Number one, you can decide to use the pin right there. That's the pin to pin it down on the loop. What I'm doing right now, just like I'm doing. You can decide to pin it this way, but guys, I wouldn't advise you do this because it can actually fall off. Okay, so this doesn't make it steady, doesn't make it strong at all. So this is one method anyway. So you can just glue it, pin it down using the brooch pin. The second method is to take out what I'm showing you that right there. I think it should be the pin hold or casing or something. Take it out using a plier. Then when you do that, you kind of have a flat surface there. Then you apply your hot glue all over it or around it. When you do that, then you can apply it or glue it down to your bow. When you do this, you'll be having a very flat surface or a very flat brooch. So this is also how, friends, you can either decide to use your pin to pin it down, which may not really hold very well, or you can use your hot glue after removing the pin casing or the pin stand there. So this is what you have, guys. Thank you so much for watching. See you on our next tutorial. Bye.